In the entire world, there are tons and tons, and should I say it again, tons of roller coasters out there in the world, and I've had the chance to experience 183 of them throughout the United States. And in today's video, I'll be sharing with you my official top 25 roller coasters list. Now I know there are going to be some very unpopular opinions, so feel free to roast me on this list, and if you want to, you are more than welcome to react. Without further ado, let's get started. And before I get started, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who subscribes to me. If you don't already, you should go subscribe, because like why wouldn't you? Number 25, Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. Yeah, no one thinks this is an elite hyper, but this is still the OG hyper, and you gotta admire that. Not only that, but this ride still has some great floater airtime, but I love the setting with this roller coaster, and the hills during the second half as well. It is better than the average hyper in my opinion. Plus, that one hill out of the mid-course brake run gives some killer airtime if you're in the very back row. I know this hyper gets overlooked by some of the other B&M hypers like MAKO, which we'll get to later, but this is definitely a very underrated hyper. Number 24, Thunderhead at Dollywood. This GCI might not be as smooth as some of the newest ones, but this ride still has one aggressive and spectacular layout. From its sudden ejector to the station flyby, Thunderhead has a variety of out-of-control airtime and moments that add up to this spectacular GCI. Plus, when I rode it, it had gotten some retracking, so it was even more appealing than it would have been before the retrack. Also, shout out to that station flyby. I mean, that part is just incredible. Thunderhead is an all-around amazing wind coaster that I truly love, and don't overlook its roughness. This coaster really is slaptacular like some of the newer GCIs. Number 23, Afterburn at Carowinds. This is the definition of an underrated invert. It may not be very tall or fast, but holy crap, this thing pulls some insane forces, especially the Batwing. It is by far the most intense invert I've ever ridden, and plus, it's super smooth, and that final corkscrew feels like you're getting teleported. I really wish this ride was more known in the coaster world, because I don't think I've ever seen this coaster get ranked in the top 50 for the Golden Ticket Awards. This ride is just pure insane, and that's why I love it. Number 22, Banshee at Kings Island. I love this invert for how unique it is compared to the rest, and plus, it has an amazing variety in terms of intense elements and floaty elements. The restraints didn't even bother me, and it didn't have a very strong idle like some people say. Taylor Bybee. Also, I love the color scheme, and overall, Banshee truly does give you the soaring feeling. Not like Flight of Passage, but it still gives you that soaring feeling. And it's very unique too. Like I've said earlier, it might not be as intense as Afterburn, but the uniqueness of this invert is why I have it on my list. Also, shout out to that like little twist towards the end. Oh, that element is just amazing as well. Number 21, Orion at Kings Island. Yay! Look at me in the top 25. For a while, I did have Banshee over this coaster, but now the tables have turned. I did get off this roller coaster a little disappointed, but I still have to look at the qualities this coaster brought. Like, it has such consistency, a fantastic first drop, some good airtime for what it had, and it was super smooth. Plus, I loved the soundtrack, and the plaza was really beautiful as well, the space theming. Even though the coaster left me disappointed a little bit, I still thought this was a fantastic Giga roller coaster, and this is more than worthy of an addition to Kings Island. Number 20, Diamondback at Kings Island. Another spectacular hyper. Like what Peter says, you can never go wrong with a B&M hyper, and Diamondback met all of my expectations. It gave some of the best floater airtime I've felt on a hyper. Not only that, but the wood setting is astonishing, and the splashdown at the end is absolutely beautiful. It does suffer from stacking, and it definitely has a small rattle, but I believe those are very minor nitpicks, and going past that, you can truly enjoy this fantastic hyper. Number 19, Mindblower at Fun Spot Kissimmee. This is truly the most underrated roller coaster I've ever been on. While it might not be very tall or very fast, this is without a doubt the most aggressive roller coaster I have ever been on. It feels like Tekashi 69 is screaming in your ears but shaking the crap out of you at the same time. It's such an insane feeling. Not only that, but the drop, the inversions, and airtime are all just insane. I don't care that it's rough, it's such an incredible ride that doesn't get talked about enough. Number 18, The Beast at Kings Island. This spot might be a huge shock, but this thing literally feels like it was built by some dudes who run a camp and decided to go wild. While the layout might be a bunch of straight sections, the roughness and terrain usage of the roller coaster adds to the intensity. Plus, the wood terrain setting is absolutely spectacular. It is what I wish the Grizzly at King's Dominion were like. Also, that double helix at the end with the tunnels gives some of the best laterals I've ever felt. I totally see why people give this ride the legendary hype it gives. It is such a classic, and Kings Island would not be the same if this ride didn't exist. Number 17, Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia. Wow, another hyper. While I haven't ridden this coaster since 2017, I still remember how amazing my ride was. I truly remember getting some fantastic air through those hills. I love how it goes outside the park, but the best part of the ride is the helix halfway through, in which you gray out. It makes Goliath the most intense B&M hyper that I've been on so far. It did have quite strong rattle when I rode it, and I've heard that it got worse over time. I was supposed to ride in 2020, but dang it, COVID! But if you can get past those rattles like I can, then you are bound to love this hyper. Number 16, Millennium Force at Cedar Point. To all the folks who think this ride is forceless, need to go. This ride not only has sheer consistent speed, but it also features some surprisingly forceful moments, especially the bottom of the first drop. Yeah, the air isn't all that special, but the main purpose of this ride is the sheer speed, and Millennium Force certainly achieves that. Plus, going up that lift hill gives some astonishing views, probably the best views I've ever seen on any roller coaster, and I'll never forget them. I really don't get why people think this ride's overrated. In my opinion, this ride is simply a masterpiece. Number 15, Storm Runner at Hershey Park. This coaster is the true definition of short but sweet. Storm Runner starts off with a very powerful launch, a top hat, but then goes through some very weird elements. Shout out to the Flying Snake Roll in particular, which is in my opinion one of the craziest roller coaster versions that I've experienced. It might be a shorter ride, but this packs a lot into such a short ride. Definitely a work of art by the folks of Intamin. Number 14, Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. This is, as of right now, my favorite wooden roller coaster that I've been on. Not only is it super smooth, but the ride has some very wild and very quick moments of ejector and floater air. Plus, the ride is very action-packed, and it even has little bits of theming which I really liked, especially a shed, which I know people weren't a fan of at first, but it's definitely better than the average block break. I still have yet to experience wooden coasters like El Toro, but as of right now, excluding Lightning Rod, this is the best wooden coaster and the best GCI that I've been on. Number 13, HAGRID'S Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at Universal's Islands of Adventure. This coaster is well known for being the most expensive roller coaster in the world, costing at a record-breaking $300 million. That cost comes from the top-notch theming, rockwork, animatronics, and use of original actors. However, everything here is executed to perfection. This coaster has 7 different launches, which are all amazing launches, even one that goes backwards. It also features a drop track, which totally catches new riders off guard. The removal of Dueling Dragons did suck, but what we got was the greatest family roller coaster of all time, and honestly, this ride alone made Islands of Adventure a destination park. Number 12, MONTU at Busch Gardens Tampa. If you want to find the king of all inverts, then look no further than MONTU. I love how it weaves in and out of these trenches. I love how whippy the ride is. I also love how forceful it can get, especially that insane batwing after their 0G roll. And it also has a very long and very smooth ride. Plus, this ride really does greet you into Busch Gardens as you are driving up. It'll be the first coaster you see parking your car, and I absolutely love this ride. Definitely my favorite invert. Number 11, KUMBA at Busch Gardens Tampa. Look! Another roller coaster at Busch Gardens Tampa! This B&M sit-down has been running since 1993, but this ride still holds up after all these years. It still has maintained its smoothness, it's very intense, probably one of the most intense, if not the most intense B&M I've been on so far. I know KUMBA has been a little sluggish recently in the second half, but those inversions are still very rapid fire, and the final helix is still top tier. KUMBA overall is a classic looper by B&M that I could just never get enough of. Number 10, MAKO at SeaWorld Orlando. MAKO is probably the coaster that I've been on more times than any other roller coaster out there. I've marathoned this thing non-stop so many times. There is a reason why this is the best B&M hyper that I've been on so far. I still have yet to experience coasters like Pandemonium, but for right now, I'm sticking with MAKO. I love the setting with the shipwreck theming. I love how the coaster is over the water for most of the ride. Plus, those hills deliver some of the best floater/ejector airtime on any B&M, especially the speed hill before the mid-course brake run. It is also one of the smoothest and most consistent roller coasters that I've been on. Add it all up and you get the best B&M hyper out there. Number 9. Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. This was the first hybrid coaster that I rode back in 2019, but man was I impressed. I enjoyed the theming throughout the queue line with the trees and the apple orchard theming. However, once it comes to the coaster itself, it is just incredible. It has some very fun inversions, wild ejector, especially the trick track double up, and while delivering probably the smoothest coaster experience I've had. I was blown away by how smooth Twisted Timber was. It made me excited to ride more RMC hybrid coasters in the future. And this is definitely one roller coaster that I recommend if you go to King's Dominion. Number 8. Maverick at Cedar Point. Maverick is small, but man, this thing packs a huge punch. The first half consists of a bunch of rapid fire elements, an ejector, and a couple inversions, but the biggest surprise for me was that second launch. For the first time going, I did not expect it, and it just came like wildfire. And the pacing during the second half is absolutely out of control. In my opinion, Maverick is an overall masterpiece that I love. Don't underestimate Maverick's size. This ride is absolutely spectacular. Number 7. SKYRUSH at Hershey Park. This ride will always remain special to me as it was my 100th roller coaster. But even then, that is not why SKYRUSH is this high. It is simply because this ride is out of control insane. That drop feels like a car crash and it delivers the strongest ejector I've ever felt on any steel roller coaster. I get people hate the restraints. I personally did not have a problem with them. I felt very open and exposed and the restraints allowed me to get some wild air. I will never forget riding this, and that alone makes me want to go back to Hershey Park. Number 6. Theory 325 at Carowinds. There is no denial on why Theory 325 is in a class of its own. It is without a doubt my favorite B&M coaster that I've been on so far. It has such sheer speed, lots of intensity, smoothness, and heck, it even goes under a frickin' pedestrian bridge. Plus, I love how forever lasting that first drop is. You literally feel like you're falling forever. And lastly, it is a super long ride with over 6,000 feet of track. That's literally insane. This was my number 1 for almost 3 years when I became an enthusiast. Even though it's not my top 5 anymore, it is still an incredible ride to me. Number 5. Lightning Rod at Dollywood. When I first rode this coaster, I was nervous because the ride tends to break down all the time. However, when I went, it didn't break down once, and the moment that launch kicked in, I was instantly in love. While it might not be the longest ride ever, this ride is filled with a plethora of airtime hills, crazy banks, and lots of terrain usage. This is also home to my favorite airtime sequence of all time. Yes, I am looking at you, Quad Down. This quad down that occurs 70% into the ride was insane. It's 4 back-to-back ejector hills, but each hill gets stronger and you literally feel like you are about to fly out. I haven't done it yet since they retracked it, but that would be a reason to come back in the future and ride this amazing coaster. Number 4. Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. Look, I know this spot might seem high for some, but let me tell you, my first ever ride was one of the most memorable. I got the front row, and that moment that 120 mile per hour launch kicked in, I don't think I've ever screamed so hard on a ride in my life. This coaster has one insane launch. The speed is already insane, but the way it accelerates you is unreal. Then you speed up to 420 feet and then spiral down. This coaster might be short, but those 17 seconds are some of the most memorable. If you love those short bursts of intensity, then you're bound to love Top Thrill Dragster. Number 3. Jurassic World VELOCICOASTER at Universal's Islands of Adventure. When I first rode this coaster during pass holder previews, I instantly fell in love. This ride is a perfect combination of theming galore with an incredible roller coaster into it. The first half has a lot of rock work, hang time, and ejector pops, but the coaster takes a turn once the second launch kicks in. After the launch, you go through some insane elements consisting of a top hat, zero-G roll, which gives you some nice hang time, and of course, the legendary Mosasaurus roll, the latter being my favorite inversion of all time. VELOCICOASTER is just one incredible masterpiece that I am super happy and blessed to have in my backyard. Number 2. Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. If you are a huge intensity junkie like I am, then this is the coaster for you. It is without a doubt the most intense roller coaster that I've ever ridden. The amount of G-forces and sustained G-forces are absolutely insane. It occurs after the first drop and where you go through a super wide turn and you gray out, almost black out. It doesn't let up from there. Afterwards, you go through these insane rapid fire transitions, and going 90 miles per hour adds to the feel of you driving like a race car. It is easily my favorite instrument that I've been on so far, and one ride on this coaster can totally explain why. Number 1, Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. If there was one coaster that I would call the perfect roller coaster, it would be this one. This RMC Hyper Hybrid has everything you could want for in a roller coaster. Airtime? Check. Smoothness? Check. Inversions? Check. A long ride? Check. Intensity? You know what? Check. This coaster has so many aspects that create this perfection of a roller coaster. I wish I rode it in the back row, but the 2 rides that I got on this beauty were more than worth it. It's just insane how this ride has so many records, such as the most airtime, which I believe. This ride has a variety of air, but the highlight occurs when you go into the structure where you never know what elements start to come next. Trust me, I didn't expect some of those inversions. To sum it up, RMC should give themselves a standing ovation for making what I would call the best coaster that I've been on so far. To sum this video up, there are so many amazing roller coasters that I've been on throughout my lifetime. And plus, next year, I'm probably going to be going on a ton of more roller coasters, especially back home with Iron Gwazi and Icebreaker coming out. But as of right now, as of late 2021, these are the top 25 roller coasters that I've been on. So that is going to end this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, feel free to give it a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more videos in the future if you enjoy this one. Also, don't forget to check out Theme Park Guy Productions on all social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Discord. Go check it out, because like, why wouldn't you? I'll see you guys next time, and you are clear for dispatch.